I'm very happy to introduce Steve Salina from Bentley University as the Principal of Instructional and Research Media Production, who will take you through the magic of creating an underwater educational experience for their students, as well as the positive results, of course, that they have seen so far. So Steve, please take us on an underwater tour.
All right, will do. You can hear me okay?
Yes, everything is perfect.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Steve, and I have a really long title, so I choose not to usually say it, but I'm going to actually share my screen here. So we're going to share screen. And hopefully you're going to be seeing this. And so what I'm going to talk about today is we've created an underwater virtual reality experience for oceanography classes, and basically to help replicate a field experience. So again, I'm a little bit about Bentley University, where we're at. We're in Waltham, Massachusetts. We're right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. We're primarily a business school, and we've always kind of been that way, but we've been blending arts and sciences a lot over the past several years with that, which is evident by having a virtual reality here for an oceanography class at a business school. We're a media science school, about 4,100 undergrads and about 1,000 graduate students. The last 10 to 15 years have been number 1 or 2 in career services by Princeton Review. Recently, we were rated the number 11 best university by Wall Street Journal, and most proud of this, number 1 most innovative university in the North recently by U.S. News and World Report. And when Bentley was touting this, they actually used our experience to help promote this. So that was very cool. So this was an NSF-funded grant between Bentley University, Louisiana University's Marine Consortium, or LUMCOM, and FIU to study how climate change and man-made issues are impacting marine ecosystems, and to also replicate a field experience which studies those systems. So in terms of the field experience, the benefits of field experience, it's pretty much, experiential learning, hands-on learning, which is shown to be very effective in these kind of things. And so between the 3 universities, we've developed a 10-day course in the Bahamas on Abaco Islands to study seagrass, mangroves, and hard bottom environments. And part of this study was to replicate that again in a virtual reality way. Field studies, though, have inherent problems to them. One is logistical issues, just getting there, hotels, airfare, all that stuff. Socioeconomic disparities, it's very expensive for a lot of people and they can't afford it. Physical accessibility concerns, people can't swim, people don't want to swim, people can't fly. There's a whole bunch of reasons why people don't go on these experiences. So there's trying to bring that experiential learning into the classroom. And how do we do that? And cinematic virtual reality, or using video in virtual reality, has been shown to be a learning tool for this. And by using CVR, you can allow field experiences, in obviously the classroom, as opposed to being in the field itself. It's broadly accessible and can be very cost effective because you don't have all the costs involved with airfare and hotels and all of that. So we built our own cinematic virtual reality. So I'm going to go a little bit through the timeline here of what we did to do that. When I came into this project, it was already 6 or so months into, they already had the NSF grant. The universities have been talking about what they wanted to do. And so I was brought in October of 2021, which is when this project started. And another faculty member here at Bentley does some research in virtual reality, and they contacted him, who in turn contacted me because I had some 360 cameras and I had done some tinkering around with it and wanted to know if I could help with this project. And so next thing you know, I got involved with this, and I said, yeah, sure, I can do this. I have some 360 cameras. How hard can it be to do some underwater video? Not really knowing what I was doing at the time, but and so between October of 2021 and April of 2022, we met a number of times to talk about the project itself and how we were going to try to do this. And So in April of 2022, the faculty member from Bentley took a scouting trip down to Miami. So we ended up shooting down in Miami instead of Bahamas, just for some logistical reasons, but it replicated the same environments. They went down to Miami in April 2022 to scout some shots there because they had specific learning goals in mind with these videos. They wanted to make sure they had the right locations for them. So they had to scout them ahead of time. So we didn't waste our time doing it when we got there. So between April and August of 2022, we really, put things together. Here's what we're going to bring. Here's where we're going to go. Here's what we're going to do. And in August of 2022, we went to location in Miami for 5 days and shot down there. And what we would do every day, we would start our day at like 7 a.m. We'd go and shoot underwater in different locations. We'd get back to the hotel at night. We'd pour through all of our footage that we had, made sure that we got the right footage. And then if something wasn't quite right, we would have to make sure we went back in the next several days to get the right footage at the right time. Because again, there were certain learning goals we needed to achieve with this. Between August of 22 and spring of 2023, we really poured through all this footage to put things together and to see like what we had and what we needed. And there were some things that we ended up getting, and I'll show you a little bit, that we didn't expect to get. So how are we going to incorporate this into it? I also then we wrote narrations for all the videos. We flew up a student from Florida International into my studio here in Waltham, recorded all the narration for the videos because all these were narrated as well. So all the narration was recorded here, and then I edited, started putting things together. In June of 2023, we collaborated with Warp VR, which is where this comes in. And one thing we had been looking at was how are we going to put all of this together? This was a big project for us and a big problem of like, we have all these things. How are we going to put them all together? How are we going to make everything fit together? And we tried a couple different platforms that just didn't work for one reason or another, and then came across Warp VR and talked with them and realized that this is really going to work for us. So collaborated with them in June of 2023 and really put everything together. September of 23, set up a VR classroom because we needed a space to have students in because we were going to have 15 to 20 students at a time come and view this. November 2023, we purchased 20 MetaQuest 3 headsets. And in December of 2023, we finally conducted our first set of classes with this VR experience. So you can see it's a 2-year process here from beginning to end when I got involved for when this happened. And that was actually almost a year ago now. And we've actually run that several more semesters since then. So I'm going to go a little bit over the equipment we use to capture this because I know that that's interesting to some people. I use the Insta 1X2, Insta360 1X2 cameras. I know they're on the 1X4 now, but we had 2 of them in case one didn't work, one got lost. We actually almost lost it the first day underwater, but each equipped with its own dive case. We used the Rode Wireless Go 2 microphones for any narration we were doing on site. And what's great that you can set that right on the side of the camera and it sits right in the blind spot so you do not see the microphone itself. Used a couple different monopods depending on what we were shooting, and dive weights were really important to make sure we could keep the camera down underwater because we were going to set the camera down and leave the scene. We needed to make sure it stayed where it was going to stay. So here's what things look like once we finally got it out there. And you can see in this middle picture here, we have the camera in the dive case with one dive weight, put it down and realized that the currents were too strong and the camera was moving around too much. So ended up taking both dive weights, so about 2.5 pounds, to weigh the camera down and put it on the bottom, and it worked just fine that way. So in terms of the software used to capture and produce this, I used Insta360 studio software to then go through the footage, pick the pieces that we want, and export those pieces however we wanted them. We wanted to put specific icons as hotspots into the videos, which is something that Warp couldn't do right now, and hopefully they'll be able to do in the future. So we had to create the icons in Photoshop of what we wanted, and then bring those into Premiere. I brought the video from Insta360 into Premiere, edited everything together, put the narration on the video, and exported all those out as 360 videos, and then imported all those into Warp VR. So this was our original navigational structure for these. So we had the welcome intro video. So there was going to be one intro video with a person standing in the environment, welcome you to your experience. Here's what you're going to see. Go explore. And then there'd be 3 different habitat situations between mangrove, seagrass, and hard bottom, and each one would have separate videos in that people could navigate through. So this was the original navigation structure I came up with. And one thing I really loved about Warp VR, and that we went with them, was for their flowchart editor. And I really love this flowchart editor, because that was one thing I was trying to do, was trying to figure out how could I take this structure and get it in something that we could, put everything together and make it look right. So here we've got our three, we've got our welcome video, which is split between 3 videos. One is so we could have it on a repeat if people needed to go back and view it again. One is a version without any of the narration on it, so because that's where people switch to another habitat between seagrass, mangroves, and hard bottom. And these are the 3 habitats themselves with the different videos involved. So within Warp VR, I'm sure plenty of you have seen Warp to an extent. This was just one of the scenes created. This one had to do with dye being put into a sponge. And then within that particular video scene, one thing I really loved about this is you could set where people were going to see, the initial settings of what people are going to see when they enter the scenario. I could say when the hotspot was going to come in. I could put the hotspot where I wanted it to be, and I could loop the video at the end with the hotspot on it. So when the video ended, it just kind of looped through with the hotspot, so people could still look around and then click on the hotspot, which was the icon that we created, to get back to one of the navigation screens. So the final output of this, we ended up with 22 total videos, including the welcome video, the 3 habitat home videos, and then 18 actual habitat videos themselves, each ranging between 30 seconds to 2.5 minutes, that were all narrated with commentary. So all of these have audio on them. It's combined with the audio from underwater, so you can hear like you're actually underwater. You can hear everything going on around you, but there's also narration explaining what's going on as well. And within the Warp VR platform, viewers can watch the videos repeatedly in no specific order, so they can kind of pick and choose what they want to see. And all total, if you ran the videos beginning to end, which we didn't do, but if you did do that, it would be 26 minutes long, roughly. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what it looked like. And again, I'm going to just very quickly, people, end up starting with a welcome screen. They come into this, they're welcome to it. They get to click on the different habitat they want to go to. And when they click on the habitat, I'm going to show you quickly here what you're going to see. And I'm going to pause this for a second. Up here, you see this is the entire video kind of flattened out as a 2D video. We're using the term 2D. This is the entire thing flattened out, and this is what it would see in the headset if you were moving around in the headset. And you can see these are the different icons we put on that represented different habitat videos that people would go to, and there was a home screen on each one. So when people click on that, they could get back to the main homepage to click on a different habitat. So let me just go through this a little bit. So again, this was the seagrass one. They can click on different videos to get what they want. So there's the conch video. You can kind of see there. They click on the conch. They get to this next video, which was a conch. And you can see how much the water is actually really moving here. You can see it's really moving a bit, why we needed to add this second weight to it. This one was really cool because we got a conch that hopped away from another conch. That was very cool. This was the important part because in each habitat, they conduct research or field research while they're there on the experience itself. So we needed to make sure that part of what they're seeing in the cinematic virtual reality was the research itself. So this was, each of the habitats had a video of you being part of the research, which is really important to this, to help mimic that field replication. Here's a cool video that we ended up getting with sea turtles. And this was one of the ones that we didn't expect to get. We put this down expecting to get seagrass. And when we looked at it later, we saw some sea turtles came through and actually came right up to the camera. Actually, his flipper hits the camera. You can't hear it. I don't have audio going, and they turn and look at it, and it's really great. And we were able to take like, hey, here's sea turtles here. They were munching on this seagrass. This is part of their habitat. And whoops, I don't want to play this again. And it was very cool that we had that in there. And again, all those videos had narration behind them. So this is what our VR classroom looks like that I put in place. This one shows that there's 15 seats spread out, so the students could move around properly, spin around in the chairs. We've actually added 3 more seats so we can get 18 in comfortably. And you can see the students actually using our experience in this. And so did these VR experiences really work? So I'm going to say right now, I'm not the expert in terms of that. This the faculty members part in terms of, did this really work or not? So what she did is there were pre and post surveys that were done for these for 3 different modalities. One is the actual field experience itself. So mode 1 of going on the actual field experience and having lectures. Mode 2 was having the lecture in the classroom and then using the VR experience. Mode 3 was having the lecture in the class and using the videos, but in that flat video, and there, you can see the students there watching it on their computer screen as 2D videos. They're watching the same videos, but not in VR. And there were pre and post surveys done to see if students learned from each modality. And what they found was that there were very high learning gains reported for using the VR. And actually for the 2D as well. So I'm not going to, dismiss that as well. The students were able to learn a lot. And this is actually really important too, because most of these students are non-STEM students. They're business students. And so they're not, scientists. They're not going to go into STEM majors for the most part. Except for the students who were already necessarily going to the field study. They were more of the STEM. They already had an understanding kind of what to go on. So their learning curve was a little bit less. But the students who were non-STEM really learned better from the VR and even the 2D too, of just being in the classroom and reading about it and hearing it in books. And between the pre-scores and the post-scores, I mean, you really could see a huge difference between VR, and again, in 2D as well too, but between VR and the pre-score and the post-score, they really learned a lot. The students loved the experience. They understood the experience. They were in it. They said, they had enhanced perceptions of what the ecosystems were like and actually being in them. It's something they just couldn't get from reading it in a book. So our students, loved it. They appreciated the immersive experience, the hands-on learning, improved access and equity for all. We had students that, again, couldn't swim, but they felt like, they were like, hey, I'm actually swimming with sea turtles, and this is cool, something I never thought I could do before. So you can see some quotes on here. The VR days were really interesting, experience worth having. Incorporation of VR was helpful, especially because I have a hard time swimming. It allowed me to experience the beauty and diversity of ecosystems in an up-close and practical way that I've never been able to do before. And this is something that we really wanted to try to bring, and we really were able to do with our cinematic virtual reality, especially thanks to Warp VR as well. So this really worked well with this. And so in conclusions, we found out that, the VR really has a more accessible format, particularly helpful for non-STEM students, provides better access and equity for learning communities, and enhanced awareness of the critical environments. And one thing I can say too is one thing I really loved about Warp VR is students, and again, you can see that with the students who used it in 2D and didn't have necessarily a VR experience, we did bring them into the VR classroom afterwards, by the way, gave them the VR experience, which they were very thankful for, and they loved it even better in VR than 2D. But one thing I loved about Warp VR is you can show it on a computer screen, you can show it on a headset, you can show it on a phone, you can show it on a tablet, and that's very, very important for accessibility. We did have a few students that couldn't put a headset on for one reason or another. We did not have students actually really getting motion sick, which is great, but a couple students couldn't wear a headset. So we had them do it with a computer instead, and they were able to get a very similar experience with that. And that was one thing that was really important to us when choosing Warp VR, was that accessibility. We have built an entire website around this called echo-mem.com. If you want to go to it, here's a QR code that gets you to there. It's a free experience, and we want this open in for everybody to use. So you can actually download it yourself if you wanted to use it. You can use it in your curriculum if you want. You can just. We're actually using it in a research center in the Bahamas, and other school systems we find are using as well too. So. That's everything in a nutshell. I hope that all made sense, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Steve. It really doesn't fail to amaze us every time that we hear about the creation and the results of your underwater experience for your students. I think we have a couple of questions here on the side. So let's see. The first one, Yes, that is the question. I thought I clicked something wrong. Okay, were the learning results better for the business students or the STEM students?
The learning results were actually better for the business students. And again, because the STEM students, the students who went on the field experience, they already have experience in that. They already kind of knew what they were getting into. They already had learned about it, whatever. So they, there's a reason why they went on this field experience. So their learning gains weren't as great because they were already, immersed in this. Although we did find that people learned, even who went on the field experience, they learned even more by then using the VR afterwards and going through it kind of again, they had even a higher retention rate for learning. Keep in mind, all this is a paper that's currently under review. You know, that's not published yet, but the paper is under review currently. But and then the non-STEM students, so the business students, they learned an incredible amount that they just didn't. They were saying things that they had never even heard before by watching these videos, and they were remembering them. You know, the next class they would go back and say, "Hey, what about this?" Which the faculty member found amazing.
Amazing. I think that all of us would like to put our hands on that research and the results. So when you have it, please feel free to share it with us.
Will do.
I think another question is in. So do students who wear glasses have problems with the headset, or do they typically work well?
Yeah, they typically work well. So I use reading glasses. I don't need them really for anything else, but I use reading glasses, and I will use them sometimes with the headset, sometimes not. Again, they're all Quest 3 headsets. Quest 3 seems to work well with glasses. As long as you elongate them slightly, they have a little insert in them that you can make it a little bit wider to put the headset, the glasses in. We've had students use glasses without any problem. The only one person had a problem because he had really wide glasses and they wouldn't fit on headsets. We had to figure that one out, but he was able to adjust the headset properly to see.
Okay. And maybe a little bit on the side of this question additionally, because you shared some images of the learning lab. Maybe if you would like to share something more, I think our clients in education would like to hear about how the lab was built.
Yeah, so it's funny because I kind of stumbled into it, which is great. We had that classroom that was used as a distance ed class right before COVID hit. So we had it set up for Zoom and other things. And then COVID hit and then everybody got their own equipment. So the classroom kind of fell off. It's like we didn't really need it anymore. So, and I was looking for a space to be able to put, you know, at least 15 people in. I would love to have more than that. I'd love to get all this class's size here is typically 25 students or less. I'd love to get all 25 students in, which is next to impossible. So we had to actually split the groups into two sections to get them all in. But it was really important just to have a big open space. I had a couple of big screens I could project on. So we did project some of the headsets so people could see what was going on. Those swivel chairs were really important because I didn't want people standing and falling over and hitting each other, but they needed to be able to move around in it. Because that was one of the big things I think that people didn't quite understand at first with the VR. Is like you can look around. You can look all the way around. You're immersed in it. So like in the welcome screen, the person says, "Okay, go ahead and explore," and the icons that pop up for the ecosystems are behind them. They have to twirl around. They can see them. They click on them, and at first they're kind of, you can see them kind of like look around, and all of a sudden they twirl around, like, "Oh, there it is," you know, and then they realize they're really immersive. But so they need that space to be able to move around in. So it's really more just a big open room than anything else. I'd like to have a couple of private rooms so we can do some testing and research and things in that too, but getting the headsets was the key, which we were lucky to do with some educational discounting. And we got a rack in there as well that powers all the headsets and holds them all in there. It can hold 24 headsets as well. So we just put them all in there, powers them while they're in the case, and it works wonderfully.
Amazing. I think we have time actually for one more question. I see you just now. So, what other topics do you think are valuable to be created in education for students?
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. This is actually, we've had faculty come into our classroom now, our VR lab classroom to see this experience and then get ideas of what they can do. And we're looking at other things right now. Actually, one of the things I'm using Warp VR for another project right now is visual stimuli and trying to show users what it's like to have cataracts. And we took some 360 videos and kind of made them, you know, normal for if you didn't have cataracts, and you could look around like everything was clear, and then you click on another thing and it's all of a sudden you have mild cataracts. You look around and you're trying to understand what you're seeing. And then you have severe cataracts. And Warp VR is great because I can easily move between the different scenarios using, again, the hotspots they did. I didn't create separate icons for them. I just used the built-in hotspots. But we're seeing them. It's a little bit harder necessarily for business. For arts and sciences, it's great in terms of the experiential learning, going to a different location, obviously history. So if we can create something like that, but we're also looking at 3D spaces. Of how we can create immersive spaces in terms of like for language, for example. So like, you know, we're trying to, for our language department, of like, hey, if you're trying to get a train ticket and you're in Paris and you're walking up to a counter and you don't really speak French, how do you do that? And we're trying to create an immersive experience of like using AI as well to be able to talk to it and maybe use generative AI and have it talk back to you in French, and you try to navigate that system, and trying to see how, again, students can navigate that, or if they're going to go abroad, maybe get a sense of that as well. So there's a whole host of things we can do in education. I could talk for an hour on that if you wanted me to. we actually have a working group on that. We've pulled together multiple faculty who have had an interest in VR just to see where they're at and then how we can pull things together.
Nice. I think it's great to hear that you're working on a couple of new use cases. So maybe we can use those for one of our next community events and have you again as our guest.
Next time we will have something new to show as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve, again for today. And I believe that we are reaching the end of this event today. So thank you, Steve, again.
You're very welcome. Take care.